We have looked at markets, at consumers, at innovation, technology, and at the many challenges and opportunities facing the wine industry today. I hope you took some information, but I also hope you took some energy out of it. You came with new questions and you get answers here. And maybe you have even found a few ideas you take with you home and will then start pursuing the next year until we meet again and see how successful it was. So before we close, I would like to say a very warm thank you to all our speakers, to ProWein, who made all this possible, but most of all to this great audience who stayed with us for almost 3 days around the clock, more or less, and followed our discussions here. In this final session, we now turn to the speaker's corner. So you will hear industry voices, clear perspectives, critical debates, and strategic outlooks. We have leading experts from the business to share their ideas, but also their pressing concerns and their strategies. So, for us it's quite important not to close with certainty, but with honest observations. And our final speakers will help us doing that. So we will have, for the next hour, we will have Melanie Breuer-Engelkes from the German Wine Institute, Alexander Marschall, co-owner of Vino Central, Lenz Moser from the famous Chateau Changyou Moser winery, Anne-Sophie Autiot from Hopscotch, Professor Simone Lohse from Geisenheim, and Frank Schindler from ProWein will close this session. So let's stay tuned. It's Melanie, please, you are the first. The stage is yours.
Great. Anja, thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'm really, really pleased to be here today. So I'm Melanie Breuer-Engelkes. I'm the Managing Director of the German Wine Institute. Our mission is to promote, the image and quality and push, of course, sales of German wines in Germany, of course, but abroad as well. And very pleased. It's actually my first ProWein. I took over the job in last July, and very, very pleased to be here on stage with you. It's the last hour, it's the last mile. We're all a bit tired, but I think we, with my colleagues and co-speakers, we're all here also around Frank Schindler to deliver a great ProWein. And in the next hour, we hope we'll inspire you and give you some new ideas for the future. So let's start straight away. One of the main topics, of course, at the moment is the talk about wine, but especially all the communication about alcohol. As you've been aware, in the last 2 years, there's been quite a lot of negative press around alcohol and specifically wine as well. So the idea is to look into how has this been building up over the last years, and how that has been treated and expressed in the media, and put into context to be able to analyze what's behind. Second, it has of course resulted in a quite big debate, and it's also important to see how do we position, how do the wine growers, the industry's positioning, and where do we go from there. And then last is how we, the German Wine Institute, have decided to address that topic and how we are helping the wine industry. So first of all, the media review. As you might have all seen, it's been quite wild out there. So what we know is wine is, either treated as a cultural heritage, of course, medicine, it's recreational, but that is standing next to other considerations about wine, which is considered even as a drug, as an addictive substance, or as, just pure alcohol, and put together with all the other spirits and alcohol products. So where do we stand there? how do we address that? On one side, we have cultural heritage, even acknowledged by the UNESCO as intangible world cultural heritage, regarding for German wines. On the other side, the World Health Organization is considering it as a dangerous drug. So, how do we go from there? So, I will show you a few examples of the German media landscape, how that has been unfolding over the last year or so. Here you can see a picture of the German TV. So it's the first channel in Germany, and you can see a big title about a new recognition, renounce alcohol completely, and it's talking about alcohol. But what do you see? A glass of wine. Interesting, yeah. And then you see at the bottom some claim there might be no safe form of alcohol consumption, might, and even in smaller fonts, the source, the German Nutrition Society. So is that a publicly known health organization from the state? This is very unclear, tiny. It's all about big impact, and with the attention span, an average of about 3 seconds, what do you retain? The glass of wine. Dangerous. Also interesting to have a quick look at the legal background. Wine is considered to be a drink, and it's part of, food. It's part of the definition of food. And there are food safety requirements that deem to say that everything that's belonging to this legal background, be it food, be it drinks, if it's consumed and produced in a certain way, it is safe to be consumed in that way. And wine falls into that category as well. Like any other sugar or any other product, as long as it's used, produced, and consumed according to the food safety regulation, there is no problem at all. Yeah, and Jen, I think it's been the same in probably some of the countries. It's been particularly strong in Germany. See the overview of how that theme has been treated across the media, across the print media, TV, online. It's all about, how dry January, starting from facts, and the impact it has on, the supposed good impact it has on your body. Then further on, it's introducing the idea that alcohol could be dangerous for your health. Putting in rumors, talking in, it might be introducing doubt in everything you read. And it goes even further and introduces the element of sickness, of cancer risk, and reducing it to the simple fact, even the first glass of wine could induce that risk, and not necessarily putting it into perspective with the other factors that could induce that type of risk. And then it even goes so far that it's going into, anyone who's drinking alcohol, it goes into, substance, it's influences, it's scrupulous body. It goes very, very far into, we talk about addiction. It's going into really the polarization of society, and even puts forward, it's a danger, and it's so much a danger that even the worst publications been about it's even good if wine growers are out of business because they will prevent people dying from alcohol. So from a simple fact that moderate wine consumption is okay, we go to that statement. How can we go so far in such a short amount of time? So that's about the debate. So we display it in a very graphic way. So it's the Mott and Bailey fallacy. How does it start? You have a claim, too much alcohol can be unhealthy, which is perfectly true, and we perfectly agree to that. you have to consume alcohol and a wine in a moderate way. But what happens from there? You have that statement, that is true, but then you start having these other interpretations. Yeah, but people die from alcohol, and they focus on one aspect. And then other aspects, drinking wine is responsible. And then it focuses on dividing society. And then, even worse, winemakers don't care about people dying. So, how you see, by taking little extracts, putting it out of context, out of a fact-reason debate, you can go very, very far in the debate. So very important when you read this, when you analyze it, always identify the mod. What is the original true statement? Check at the core statement and, of course, agree to it. Yeah, we've been always agreeing to it. And then really look at the difference between all these side stories that are popping out from there. Then there's another interesting tendency and trend, which is cherry-picking strategy. So you see here the different studies and analyses about the effect of alcohol. And we have had here the Global Burden of Disease report that has been very much put forward recently. But it's been a real cherry-picking strategy because they've been focusing on a report that's been published in 21 that has been, updated 2 years later with a report saying other elements, but that hasn't been taken into account. They have just focused on that one report. So always, when you see these claims out there, question the representation of this international study and check if it's adequate and also complete and faithful. Also, always check the study findings and understand why some facts have not been included. Is that a complete representation or not? And if denied, it's always important to ask back. Show me the facts. Explain me the context. Show me the whole picture. And then also to put also our situation back into perspective. So advertising wine is legal. Then there are the further facts. People are seduced into consuming alcohol. And even worse, there are numerous deaths and enormous costs on public health. But what we've got is for instance, in Germany, we've got the advertorial restrictions that very clearly state how far we can go, what we can advertise on, what we can say. And that is the protection preventing all the rest happening if we do things right and follow these guidelines from the Advertising Standard Board. So, of course, all this has been quite a big topic for us at the German Wine Institute. How do we address this? Of course, we have decided if we go public and start answering all of these articles and claims, we are not in a neutral position, or we're not considered to be in a neutral position. We will always be somehow the wine lobby. So we have decided to go both ways. We work very closely with the German Wine Academy that is delivering and researching all the scientific facts and working with independent researchers who fact-proof all of these claims and they publish it. But we're communicating it, and we have decided to, first of all, support the wine industry with the right facts and the tools to address the questions that they've been asked. So we have developed a quick facts flyer that we have shared with the wine industry just last month. And it's really addressing the three main questions that are circulating currently in the wine industry. So it's in German, but I'll show you some highlights. And I think we should translate it into English soon. Yeah? Yeah. But I say you can download it from the German Wine Institute website, and we have an English version available as well. But here, one of the main questions that the wine industry or our wine growers are very often asked is consuming alcohol harmful in general? So here it's all about giving quick facts, a really easy answer that you can have available in your wine estate, if you're in a shop, in a bar, in a restaurant, to share with your staff, and that everyone can answer and address if you get that question. Second aspect is, is it true that studies have proven that there's no safe level for alcohol? Here again, we dress the point, we give the facts, and explain, as I showed you before with the cherry picking strategy, the studies the German Nutrition Society is referring to is an older study. There have been more recent studies that have even saying new facts that are less dangerous regarding alcohol, and they're not mentioned. So it's important to give you the full picture so you can make your own argument about it. And then third question is about, is alcohol the only relevant factor when it comes to wine and sparkling wine? And it's also stating here the good effects they could have with the polyphenols that can have on your body. And last but not least, you can, if you wish, go further and via these QR codes access the research that has been made available to have the full picture about these questions. So as I said, this is available via the German Wine Institute website. You can download it, and the team is of course there to help anyone in the wine industry to address it and to answer any questions you might have. So that's a quick overview of what we are doing. We combining that also to finish on my part with globally a communication campaign we're launching for 2026, where it's all about bringing awareness and I would say the appreciation of German wines back into the German market. We need to get back market share for German wines, because many of our wine consumers have been quite destabilized by this, what's going on in the press. And so we're going both ways. We give tools to the wine industry with this quick facts flyer, and parallel to that, we start a communication campaign where we push the awareness, how great German wines are, tell the stories behind, and we address it to end consumers to make them also feel more comfortable about having a safe and moderate consumption of wine combined with food and a healthy lifestyle. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Otherwise, I think my slot is over. So I'll hand over to the next speaker.
There he is. So next speaker, Alexander Marschall. The floor is yours. Thank you very much.
There we are. Hi, good afternoon. I'm Alexander Marschall. I'm one of the founders of the Vino Central online merchant in Darmstadt, south of Frankfurt. We're in the business now for almost 35 years. And everybody is talking about the unsecure future of wine business. To me, that doesn't make much sense. It might be unsecure in the way we address it nowadays, but we can change things, and we can. I will tell you about some possible changes out of our perspective. The backbone of our future industry are undoubtedly for us small producers, craftspeople working on diversity and protecting our environment. We could basically characterize them as small or medium-sized family business, growing indigenous grapes, featuring terroir wines, being organic or biodynamic, even if they're not certified. And we feature about 250 producers that meet one of these requirements. And if these producers now try to establish a fair price for their handcrafted and cultural products of their very own product, they violate European competition law. This is quite insane and honest. Nobody outside of this industry would believe that. If you go outside and tell your neighbor that this is the case, I think he wouldn't even believe you. And now we have a conflict there, of course. And let's look at why this is in the first way. I have to do both ways here, because I'm looking at my presentation here because of the English. So we have a conflict there, and why is it prohibited? The antitrust law prohibits any action that restricts free competition. Free competition should protect the consumer by keeping the prices down. If a winemaker now asks one of their retailers to raise or lower the selling price, this is, as of now, seen as limiting free competition and is therefore illegal. The law here definitely needs some specification, because now the internet, with its almost perfect transparency, very well takes care of competition. We can call this the inter-brand competition, and it's taken care of by the internet very well, and therefore we most likely can sacrifice the intra-brand competition, which we really don't need among a certain product of one individual winemaker to be controlled by law, not being able to talk about this. But let's look at why this regulation goes so far. The whole law dates out of the 70s, where we didn't have any internet. And now, as I mentioned, we have this high transparency, and that's why the law actually has to adapt to that. How should an individual winemaker control his brand thoroughly if he's not able to talk about the price of his product, the product he made with his own hands? It's quite ridiculous to me. And these industries out there can only protect their future if they have, if they can influence their price and look after their price. And if these industries out there go down the drain, then the whole industry is at risk. So I don't really ask too much, but I just want to change the law so that they are at least allowed to talk about it. I have to. I'm in the back here, slipping the slides. But I told you. Now we're here on the next one here. And what is the risk of this regulation? We have the downward price spiral. You all know it. The automatic price machines lower the prices every day, and the prices go down and down. Winemakers watch their vintages being sold at dumping prices just to open a basket at some marketplace. Winemakers can watch their productions being sold at discounted prices, although they sell their vintages every year. They're sold out, so there would be absolutely no reason to discount them. And wines are being offered at excessively higher prices in some regions. If you look at Denmark, and there we could even protect consumers from too high prices if the winemaker takes influence. Because believe me, there's many winemakers that don't agree about the high prices the consumers have to pay for their wines in Denmark. So, and the whole market for wine growers is so complicated that if they can't look on the prices, they're really limited to access these complicated markets and be a sustainable partner in there. So, as I said, we have to see to it that they can discuss their prices. And what could be the benefits? Benefits could be that they can lower the prices in the regions where they're very high. And I believe that these medium-sized wine growers in Europe most of them, they don't even realize how important it is to watch for these prices, because many of them didn't get pulled down this drain. But basically, if a price is once ruined, then the dealers and merchants are not really interested in the product anymore, and then it has to move out of the market. And especially in times where people save money, they will be starting to drink wine at home again, and not only at safaris and restaurants. And then they will buy the wine in the online market. And therefore, this is an important issue. So, I guess the law is also very often disregarded. I have many producers, they don't even know about it, that they violate the law. And but as soon as they get aware, they're afraid, and they can't really keep up their prices because they're afraid they're going to be sued or going to get problems. And what can we do? I'm back again. So what can we do? We have to raise this issue on the European level and contact the responsible European commissions to look into changes. I know that we would be able to open trial periods to change this and to see how the market reacts and evaluate it. And we have to talk to our partners and producers and raise interest in this topic. And we can also take a look at what we are doing in our shop. We never have a single pre-reduced price in our shop. We always sell the bottle at the suggested B2C price from the first to the last bottle. And if we have overstocks, we distribute them in the restaurants, and we never go in the market with reduced prices. And we are very successful with this, and our business is growing. And so I hope you will join me in helping to save our artisanal wine making. And if you're interested, be free to get in touch. Thank you.
So, thank you very much. Where is our next speaker? There he is coming. Lenz Moser.
Thank you. My name is Lenz. I'm the husband of my wife Marion Moser. And I make wine in China. I think I'm the longest serving guy in China, with 21 years making wine and exporting and importing. But I also make, as I'm Austrian wine, Grüner Veltliner, a project with Markus Huber called New Chapter. And I'm also nowadays in Tokai, with dry Tokai in particular. Well, the wine industry needs change. I think we can agree all on this, but I give you two examples how much we should go. Let me rewind the clock back to the year 97. I was following Tom Peters, In Search of Excellence. You are all too young here, you might not even know the guy, but at the time in the 90s, In Search of Excellence was the book in marketing and about companies. And he addressed a crowd of 600 people for a whole day. We paid a ton of money to listen to this guru. And the first question he shocked us all in the morning was, who was online today already? 97. Guess how many people did raise their hands? It was 7 people. And today, without going online in the morning, you're dead. Yeah, not that I check at 6 o'clock, but you have to do that. And so, when I ask you today the same questions, how many of us were dealing with AI this morning or today already? Then I don't know. You did, yeah. See, that's a good ratio here. But that's similar to the 97 questions, because in 2 or 3 years' times, this is an obsolete question because it's part of our lives, like emails and internet communication whatsoever. Second point is my wife, that's why I mentioned her, did invite her colleagues. She works for Longines in Germany. She's the brand manager or the general manager for Longines in Germany. It's a very lucrative business, Swiss business, watches. And she invited her team on the first Thursday of this month of January to an after-work drink. Nobody showed up because she said, just a drink. So she said, well, maybe I need to up the game here. Next week she invited again and said, well, it's a champagne after-work drink. I tell you one thing. And the excuse was, you know, Gen Z and millennials, that's basically her clientele in her company. She said, they said, you know, dry January. Clear. Next week everybody showed up. And it was really interesting. They said, that's worth an excuse. So we just need to trigger the consumer a little bit more. So with these two things, I'd just like to say that we change automatically anyway. My feeling is that the wine industry didn't change enough. As my 97-year-old father, about 3 years ago, said, son, your industry is too static. And that's where we are. And that brings me to a really nice quote of Lamberto Frescobaldi, who in Fine magazine, and I really like this, because we have to be a little bit unhappy and a little bit unsatisfied with what we do. Not too much, because that's too depressing, but just a little bit on a daily basis in order to be more successful in the future. I think that's something, a wisdom of a very, very nice friend of mine, who is a very, very good marketeer as well. So let's go to the game changers here. I have 8 minutes. I'm missing a slide here. Okay, then I'll quote. The first game changer was 76, The Judgment of Paris. Again, you're much too young, but it's been written a lot. That was the first time that the Californians challenged Paris, the Bordelais, in a famous and the Burgundians in a famous tasting, and they won. Blind tasting on French soil, they won. So everybody was shocked in the trade, including Austrians and Germans and whoever. Internet was not there, but you know, the news got spread. And the second game changer was, and this triggered most likely this project here, because this was for me the real game changer in our trade. It led us into a direction which is not a good one. Cut a long story short, I admire this brand. I sold this brand for 10 years with the Mondavis in Europe. Was very successful. Is even more successful now. Even now, today, it's very successful. But it led us to believe that price is everything, and you can go up and up and up and trading up, and the consumer will follow you no matter what. Because when it was launched, it was $50 bottle over a $12 bottle, which was a premium bottle in California at the time. So jump from 12 to 50 at the time, no problem. But this was something which led us to believe that we can go ad infinitum with pricing. So, and then something happened. When you're old enough, like myself, then you see all these flags here, and this was the best thing happened to the consumer in 3 decades. I still remember when the first containers of Australian Chardonnay landed in the UK. This was this oaky, for me, Austrian, undrinkable stuff, but the British loved it because it was different, and the youngsters jumped on it. Then came California, the Bob Mondavis, but also the Gallos. I mean, you know, we are Germans here, so it's in every supermarket, but I was part of the revolution. So California was next. Then came Chile, the Chadwicks of this world, and all these Santa Ritas and all these guys. And what did they bring to the party? They brought a new discovery and a surprise to the younger consumer. They were not too expensive, but they did their job in keeping the Europeans up on their toes. We had to innovate, we had to do something, otherwise they would have killed us. In some countries they did, like in Scandinavia. Chile was once the #1 destination for Systembolag in Sweden. So, and then Argentina, and the rest was New Zealand. So that's what really created the hype. But ever since 2010, what happened? Nothing, you know. We got complacent, we got fat, and that's where we are in this crisis today. I think what's very, very important also to observe is, what is wine? And then I'll come to some solutions, don't worry. Wine is, I think, as Mr. Sun, the CEO of Changyu, said last year in a public statement, because he had to explain 30% drop in sales of a publicly traded company, that's a lot, and he said, we grew too distant from the consumer. And I think he is right. We were all producing for a fictional consumer and forgot the one thing which keeps us alive, because the baby boomers, like myself, are dying or not drinking enough anymore. I could tell you a lot of examples where they cut down and everything. It's a disaster. The trouble is Gen Z and millennials don't drink, but I'm sure you have heard this the last couple of days as well, so I won't go into detail. And we don't even understand these youngsters, because they are completely different to when I grew up, because I had no internet, I had barely a phone, yeah, at the time. And so we are a little bit in trouble here. So we forgot about what wine is, but have you ever seen Drops of God? Any one of you? Do you know what Drops of God is? It's Apple TV, and it's a really good, I think it's 8 series, and we're now in the 2nd series. It's where the main character says his definition about wine. Wine is about a place. Wine is being together with people and having a nice evening. And I really encourage you, have this thing, because it makes you think a little bit about wine, which is rare when you have a TV program. On the thing, Jean-Charles Boisset, I'll just give you 2 more quotes, says wine is social, story, and the place as well. And what I distilled with a group of 30 people, young people at the Maldives, young sommeliers. Recently, I had 2 hours to kill with them. So I said, let's discuss what is wine for you guys. And they said basically the same thing. Wine is togetherness. Wine is enjoyment, and wine for them was culture. So that was the 3 main elements. After 2 hours of discussion, I wrote them on a billboard. It was really interesting to see. So, next slide. Where do we go from here? I'd like to familiarize you with something I do on a daily basis for the last 11 years. I'm pretty proud of this slide, and it's Chinese wines. Why am I proud? Because we single-handedly changed an industry in China. Because it was and I say this publicly, it was no fun to taste wine 20 years ago in China, because wine was simply not good enough in a European context. Not in the globe, but in the Chinese that was okay, but for Europeans we were steps ahead of wine quality in China. But we are catching up very, very fast, and I'm standing here because people listen to this, and we really created something, a really nice brand architecture, because we are very democratic wines here. We have 2 wines here at 15 euros for buy the glass programs, and we have 2 wines here at 40 euros, and then we have, you won't believe this, Purple Air comes from the east, retails for around 150 to 180 depending the country, and this fellow here, this is Long 12. This is the most successful wine ever sold in China, regardless the appellation. It's Long 12. It comes also from the chateau. It retails for 260 euros a bottle, and it's sold. How many times do you think this sells in China? Does it sell 10,000 bottles, 20,000, 30, or 140,000 bottles? It's selling 140,000 bottles in China. Yes, it's a big country, but the consumption of per capita in China is this glass at the moment. Yeah? So that it's not more than that. So we're pretty proud because we really changed the paradigm. Wine drinking is fun in China, and I'll come back to that in a second. Yeah, where do we go from here? The bad news is, in my belief, and that's my personal opinion, we didn't hit the bottom, especially when I was walking the show here. And I give you one example how bad it could be. It's not going to be as bad on the global stage, but in China, the market collapsed from 18 million hectoliters to 6 million hectoliters in 10 years. 18 to 6 million. They were number 5, and now I think they're number 15. So decide where each of us would like to go. And this is the photo I want for my Chinese friends. This is really, I've been there at Wine Paris, sorry ProWein, but when Mr. Sun, our CEO, presented a 6-liter bottle to Mr. Macron, and they talked for 5 minutes about this, and it was on TV, it was all over the news. It's absolutely fantastic. He's, by the way, a really cool guy, so you can talk to him if you get through all the security stuff. But to close here is we as Stephen Jobs once said, I'd like to read this quote to you because what his mantra was, expressing the appreciation for the human species, create something wonderful, throw it out to the world, and see how it resonates with people. And that's what I'm trying to do. That's what we are trying to do, because there's not a lens show, it's a cooperation with the Chinese. You need purpose. You need to listen to people. I'm going to listen most of my time this year, and I'm going to give explicitly masterclasses for Gen Z and Millennium people this year, because I want to learn from these guys, because I don't understand. My daughters are too old already, so I want to understand these people. Quality, quality, quality. Innovations. We're doing white Cabernet. You've heard this. You've seen it. And then let's be persistent once we have a plan. So at the end of the day, change is key. Thank you very much for your attention. Cheers.
Wenn keiner mehr kommt. So. Thank you very much. Very inspiring, and you got your photo. So, hopscotch. Now, Anne-Sophie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anja. So, good afternoon, everyone. Very happy to be here. We're going to talk about AI, and I know there have been a lot of talks during the last days regarding AI, but we're going to look at this in terms of communication and how AI may transform the way we communicate about wines. And we will start with a kind of a provocative question: is this the end of the human touch within the wine and spirits industry and within communication? Very shortly, who we are. Hopscotch is a global public relations agency. We work a lot with B2B and B2C audiences and have a very strong backbone in the food and beverage, and especially wine business. So talking about AI, and thanks Lens, because I think you provided a very good introduction to this presentation as well. We've seen it, AI is everywhere. Basically this morning everyone had to do with AI already, and I don't need, I think, to define, but basically what we do with AI is very different. We learn, we get trained on wine and spirits, we get informations, we get organized, we save time, of course, and we delegate tasks which have not a lot of value. And last but not least, we are also getting entertained through AI. And nowadays, and the figures are going up every day, it's 56% of the German consumers that are using AI on a daily basis, and over the 12 last months. And if we look at younger generations, of course, the number is even higher. So what happens in the last decades, and I'm sure the oldest ones among us will still remember, in the past, we used to internalize basically the information and the knowledge. It was not that long ago. And then came the internet, and that's what we call the Google effect, where basically we knew where to find the information. We still had to memorize it, but still it was about looking and then learning. And what's happening today is very different. We have AI tools, so we are looking for the information, but basically we are delegating the reflection and the decision making to AI, which is very, very different, as you will understand. It can be a very, very interesting way to inform people about wine. We know, and we've heard it before, that it's quite tricky actually to access information about wine. So if we look at stats, 63% of the German wine producers think wine should be easier to understand. If we would look at other countries, we would be around the same numbers. So AI can definitely be a platform to enter basically, or to get knowledge very easily about wines. It's just like one prompt with maybe sometimes some very loose question that you wouldn't dare asking to a sommelier or a person at the wine shop, that you could easily do with AI. And what's happening also with AI is that basically also the smallest company are also using AI to facilitate communication towards the audiences with sometimes more meaningful results than others. So today we assume that 57% of German companies use AI for marketing and communications. You can see here some very famous examples. You can so see here also some very illusional, very big mistakes. That's what's happening with AI, but everyone is kind of trying to use AI because of course it's accessible, it's an easy way to professionalize communication, and we see that a lot in the wine and spirit industry. And it's really basically persuasive, right? You feel very professional when you look at this. One big other things when you look for information regarding, wine and spirits is of course what we call GEO. So before it was all about, being ranked correctly on Google, making sure that your company, your winery, your brand would appear basically among the top results. What's very important nowadays is also to be really, really well ranked into GEO. So how do you appear basically on generative engines, ChatGPT, Gemini, and so on. So we did the exercise, and what we ask basically ChatGPT and other similar tools is, what would be the best wine to try in 2026? And please give me one answer. And you see here a very, very, very narrowed, basically, decision making, which can, of course, help people, that have a clue about wine, but can be very dangerous. How can you get just like one answer in such a wide world with so many different wines, different styles? And here is the point. It's not about SEO anymore. It's about also making sure that your brand is ranked, you have the right narrative, the right information on your website to make sure that you also appear on LLMs. And that's a bit the challenge we see. We have a lot of diverse consumer expectations, many different in terms of styles, in terms of price, in terms of moments. We talked a lot about, the emotions of wines. And then you have of course, training models that are based on algorithm. And the risk we see is basically standardization. And you see that already happening when you look on Instagram. Everything kind of looks the same. Is this something that we can have in the wine industry? Wine is not an industrial product. So where we see the danger is basically, it's super hard to meet properly the consumer's expectations because they are so diverse. Wine is not a unified product. And the risk is that the creativity could decline, and also the envy for discovery could disappear. Wine doesn't fit into boxes, definitely not. As we've seen before, it's super hard just like with one automated parameter alone, just to have the single answer. So the industry needs, of course, to build up on AI because it's a very formidable tool to get people to understand wine and to get basic knowledge about wine. But what we need is something different. And what we see as well, and it's about Germany, but you can see the same basically in different countries, is like 44% of German consumers nowadays are getting nervous when talking about AI. So maybe it's too much. And that's where we see the opportunity. And you can see here a very good example. It's not in the wine, but it's in the beer business. Because wine drinking or spirits drinking, it's a subjective experience, right? We all remember the day or the moment we had a very specific wine experience. We understand the emotion. So this subjective experience, it cannot be computed. And this is basically the motive of the advertising of Heineken, to say, okay, the best way to make a friend is definitely over a beer. And it's basically, I don't know if you know this AI necklace, which is basically completely AI computed, but basically the real experience is really like when you taste the product, being beer or wine. And that's where also the role of the winemaker, the role of the sommelier, of the category management will be key in the future. How do you transport this craftsmanship, the story, the authenticity to the consumer in a real moment? So the antidote is what we call the relational capital. So making sure that each brand, each company uses also the power of relationship with their stakeholders, making sure that the producer has a very key important role in the communication, in explaining the vision behind the product, explaining the style, explaining the product itself, making sure that the prescriber is also getting in touch with the consumer, and last but not least, making sure that the consumer has a real experience with the project, because in the end, this is what will convince consumers to discover wines, and this is what will convince also consumers to discover the variety of wines and to keep discovering, not being dictated by a machine what they should drink. So thank you very much. We'll be happy to continue this discussion, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Thank you very much. And now, Simone, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm the last before Frank, and I want to make it quite short. Sorry, this is where I have to press the button. Yes. So we asked the industry, and we've done this now for the 9th time, doing the ProWein business survey. This year, ProWein changes, so all the exhibitors could already access it. And then the next day it will be made freely available. My name is Simone Lutz from Geisenheim University, and it has been a huge pleasure for me to collaborate with ProWein to collect all this knowledge from you guys. This year we've done something new. Or again, we have producers, we have intermediaries, we have retailers, so it's a whole, roundabout collection of information from all different parts of the supply chain. And this year we've done something new because we asked the participants, please share with us, what did make you successful last year? What were your small successes, your large successes? What was your strategy that paid out? And again, AI makes things easier for the researcher because we asked them in writing. Give us a few sentences. And not making up a scale, but really tapping into the original knowledge of the producers. And we did this also with the intermediaries and the restaurants and so on. And the good thing is now, this would have kept us busy for weeks in the old days. But now you supervise AI in categorizing all the open responses. And you ask them, give me some archetypes, and maybe you don't like it, you revise it a bit. And in the end, we came up with a solution on the producer side, and we are grateful for you sharing that. And that's basically on the producers, the wine producers, what made them successful. And the number one is customer proximity. New touch points generate new consumers. Once you have them, keep them, retain them, have a lifelong relationship with them, and that taps into this experience. And that taps into this, having all the associations, having the feeling. I always say, I want to be in the vineyard. I want to smell, I want to have the wind on my skin. And that's so much different than just looking at it online. This is mainly direct to consumer. The second thing is most wine estates, if they are of a not tiny size, they have to have several channels. So they also have to play the online channel. They also have to play B2B channels, the restaurants, the on-trade, and this is about activation. Manage it in advance and so on. Just a first thing is we wrote all this up. It's available on the white paper. I just want to give you an appetizer on that because I have like 1 more minute left, and then you can really read all this in detail. The third one is, and that's what we heard from Lenz just a few minutes ago, is this: I need to adapt because the world is changing and I need to innovate. I'm not really sure that all of the wine estates need to have an alcohol-free wine. I don't think so. But innovation also relates to how do I communicate with my customers? How is my digital strategy as a fine wine producer? So that is this constant not being 100% satisfied I need to change, I need to improve all the time. And actually meeting these successful winemakers, because this is at the moment part of our research in Geisenheim, who are the ones growing in our sales analysis. And I can tell you, these are guys who are always, you know, they are restless. They're always say, I need to do something, you know, I need to change. It's very different from those who say, I've done this 20 years like this and I don't change. Value and brand clarity. Of course, you need to be unique. You need to have a point of differentiation, and ideally it's authentic. So it resonates with who you are, who is your land, who is your wine estates, you know, how does it all feel like? And don't discount, but try to mark without going down on the price it, but use different methods. If you look at the 5 points, 4 relate to sales side. If you're going into a funnel, the funnel will be very, very narrow, and only those will survive who will have the new customers. I'm sorry, the rest will not survive. And the number 5 is, well, still you need to have a profitable business. It's the business administration side, so you need to know your cost. You know, you need to know which SKU do I make money with, and I should keep them. And those where I lose money, I need also have to delist those ones. And I need to know which vineyards can I work on and which vineyards can't. And as you can see, this isn't easy, it's quite complex. And if you would like to know the details, we have written that, first of all, you know, it is unique to the wine estates. I think the most of the general strategies are similar, they fit into similar boxes, but how you play it out, that is unique to the producer. There's a white paper. Please feel free to contact me. It'll also be available through ProWein, and we've done similar things. We will do this for the intermediaries, and we will do it for the fine wine retailers and the on-trade. And I'm really grateful for ProWein that we were able to share this knowledge with the industry. Thank you so much.